parents both were seasonal migrant workers. So it is necessary to understand the context that I'm making, especially when parents are illiterate. Uh, how did they complete their education? How did they face discrimination? And because in a tribal area, even completing class 10th is considered as a big achievement. So the arrangement is either you travel with your parents, seasonal migration, you either travel with your parents or you stay with relatives, or you're sent away in relatives' houses, you are not given education, or you stay in ashram shalas, which is a residential boarding school. So what they saw in the fields when they accompanied their parents is that a lot of alcoholism and lot of abuse. Both, mother also, and of course, the parents also, because, and it is not a good memory that they carry of their childhood, which is very unfortunate. They said that the work is so backbreaking that in order to kill the hunger, because money is so little, that both the parents used to indulge in alcoholism. So addiction to alcoholism was very high. At the destination where they used to go, there was no sanitation facility, so they would do open defecation. So now how was the experience in their school? Because if they were put up in ashram schools, which are basically state sponsored schools, one of them said that it was the first time that I owned a uniform. It was my first set of clothing of uniform, and because I never even had undergarments to cover myself. Another participant mentioned that she saw a soap for the very first time in the residential school. Another respondent remembers that she cried all long, day and night, for wanting to see the parents. And when these girls go home, there is a feeling of alienation. Why alienation? Because the school environment, although it's still in the tribal areas, the school environment is different because you own textbooks, you understand outside world. And when you come back home, your siblings are still, they don't know anything about outside world. They have never learned the language, a different language. They know nothing. So there is a alienation which happens between children and their parents, especially when children go to the schools. They also mentioned that the rigor of school, because of the rigor of school, they would never want to become a seasonal migrant ever. They, however, said one thing: because their parents were migrant workers, they could never make the caste certificates. And we all know that there are a lot of benefits that one could avail of if you have caste certificates. But because they were children of migrant workers, their parents could never make a migrant caste certificate, a scheduled tribe certificate, and because of which they lost lot of opportunities. This is the last slide that I'm coming to. What are the ensuing challenges due to seasonal migration? Sexual harassment, dropping out of school, child labor, child abuse, child marriages. Political agency is low because at destination you don't get to vote, and the hometown you miss out the right of voting. So you really do not have any voice. The negotiating power with the contractor is also low because you've already taken loan from him. And there are no alternative livelihoods because you are a tribal. And a tribal cannot adjust to a city life. So coming to the city is also, it's not an option available to him. Lack of access, lack of knowledge of government schemes, health education, food security, minimum wages, and all this leads to further exploitation and powerless to demand for basic essentials. So I would like to conclude by saying that while the state enjoys the distinction of the most progressive state in the country, it cannot leave behind those regions which may not have geographical or social advantage, and progress should be holistic progress of all people. Unequal progress is no progress at all. And state-run programs can be effective when all indicators of development are given equal importance while being sensitive to the people of the region, the culture, the land, their belief system, their ecology and ecosystem, which they have preserved for so many years. and there is a direct connection between the development and migration process. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sangeeta Desai, for this very interesting and very important contribution. I would like now to proceed with the next speaker. That's Fasila Fasi, and she will speak on women, workers, and migration in the pandemic situation, a review paper. Are you there, madam?
Fasila Fasi, are you there, ma'am? I'm not able to find you in the contact list. Can you please message in the chat box? Ma'am, otherwise we can go ahead with Amruta. Miss Amruta, yes.
Yeah. Then we proceed with Amruta Radhakrishnan, and she will speak on We Are With Them Always, voluntary organizations, relief measures for the migrants during COVID-19 pandemic situation. Thank you very much. You may start. You can unmute yourself, or I can try. Yes. And yeah, I should mention that. Yeah, you can start. Sorry.
Yes. Good afternoon, Shrija ma'am. Could you just
Yeah, you can unmute yourself. I have made you co-host. Yeah,
ma'am?
you can speak. We can hear you.
Ma'am, is it possible if you could unmute Dr. Shija Kar? Yeah,
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Dr. Shija Karalam, you will also be.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to present our paper in this national conference. I'm Dr. Shija Karalam. I'm Associate Professor of Social Work at Christ Deemed to be University, Bangalore. And my co-researchers and co-presenters are Ms. Amrita Radhakrishnan and Ms. Anupa Rachel Matthew. They are the third semester Master of Social Work students of our university. They are specializing in clinical and community practice. And our title, actually, I'll share the PPT now. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Yes, thank you. The topic of our study is We Are With You Always, the voluntary organizations' relief measures for the migrants during the pandemic situations. 1 minute, let me arrange this view section. Okay, yeah. Now I can see the PPT. So come to the content, and this is the way we have prepared our presentation. The introduction and methodology I will be presenting. The results and conclusion will be presented by my co-researchers, Ms. Amrita and Ms. Anupa. Coming to the introduction, we all are aware about the COVID-19 pandemic situation and lockdown period. So we have seen that it has posed a very serious public health challenges across the country and including our country. So we all are we experienced the situation very in a different scenario. We can find that when we are going through the lockdown period, and due to the lockdown period and due to the COVID-19 situation has turned most of the professions into work from home, and they have turned their profession to work from home. But look at the situation of the migrant workers. They're also workers like us. So that lockdown in India has seriously impacted millions of migrant workers. A lack of food, amenities, and loss of their employment, and fear of unknown, and lack of support. These were the struggles they were going through the period. The way we were also going through the period, the lockdown period. And these were the reasons for them to struggle And according to government of Karnataka, we could find that nearly 40 lakh members are there in the migrant population in Karnataka, especially in Bangalore. We could find that 7 lakh members are included in the migrant laborers, and including women representation also there. And they are from the unorganized sectors. Just imagine if they are in the unorganized sector. So that also we could find that they are out of work and with no safety net to support them during this lockdown period. That was one of the areas we could find that, and we could identify that many people were working hard and their work are unnoticed. They were during this lockdown period were the voluntary workers, the voluntary organization members, and the members of voluntary organization, they've been extending their services to prevent the hunger, the infections, and the destitution among the migrant population. Especially, they considered the women population in the migrant communities. And with the in the study, we expect that, and the scope of the study, I would like to say, and we want to get to notice the efforts of the voluntary organizations in during the pandemic situation for the migrant laborers, and let them get noticed what they have done for them. At the same time, remind the other institutions what way we can support the people who are in trouble, especially the migrant laborers who are from the unorganized sector. They had a lot of struggles during the lockdown period, and how to support them during the unexpected life situations. That situations may happen to anyone, anytime. So that is one of the thing we were expecting out of the study. Another one we were talking about, we could find a huge gap between the laws as well as policies, as well as the reality, the life situations of the women and the migrant population. So these are the way we have identified, and that's the reason for us to take up this study for this research. And coming to the methodology, we have followed a qualitative research method, and the case study approach we had, and 13 voluntary organizations involved in the relief measures to the migrant laborers were purposefully we selected for the study. And we had an interview guide with the different themes on history, relief measures, challenges faced by the organizations, and the advocacy measures they have developed out of their interventions. I invite my co-researchers, Amrita and Anupa, to present the results and the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Shrija ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. So I would be talking, first of all, about the history and background of the voluntary organizations that we interviewed. So as Shrija ma'am told, we have interviewed about 13 voluntary organizations, and their target audience, or the area of work, ranges from socio-economically marginalized background, women, children, for youth. There's also an organization that works as an umbrella organization, such as Dream India Network. Then there is another organization called Mukti, the 13th one, which is actually they are focusing on human trafficking and bonded labor. And Vidya Niketan and Headstream, they focused on the underprivileged area of society. World Vision, APSA, Sevak Pratyasha Foundation focused on children, REACH focused on girls, PMSR Karunya focused on women, child, elderly, and the specially abled, and Mukti, as I mentioned again, the women trafficking and human trafficking and bonded labor. What I would like to highlight here is that although their area of focus is, as I told, it's varied, but they went out of their way during this COVID pandemic crisis situation, and they served all the people, especially the migrants, and in specific the women. Now, some of the relief measures that, thank you. Some of the relief measures for the migrant population during the COVID-19 that was followed was, as a whole, like they had provided dry ration in collaboration with Zomato, as well as cooked food. They used to provide rice, dal, all of these food items for the people. They did provide an awareness program, because in the beginning, when the COVID-19 broke, there was a lot of myth attached to the situation and what exactly this disease is. And they worked with the community and they spread awareness on the same. They also provided hygiene kits, and for women, they provided, for the lactating mothers, they provided a health kit, medical kit, in specific for people, especially they have provided financial relief as well, like rupees 700 per month for migrant family. So in specific for the migrant family, especially women, what these voluntary organizations have done is they've provided them with shelter, they provided them with clothing and bedding, they've provided with, again, I repeat, as for the pregnant women, they have provided them with medical kits and other um, vitamin tablets, all the necessary requirements. They have also provided rupees 700 for migrant family. Now, while this voluntary organizations were going through, they were serving the community, they also faced certain challenges. Now, this will be explained to us by my co-author, Anupa. Over to you, Anupa.
Thank you, Amrita. So I will be briefing about the challenges that the voluntary organizations faced while they were involved in rendering services to the community. So first of all, due to the sudden pandemic crisis, they faced lack of finances. So they had little crunch in the finances, and there was little financial crisis that they faced, due to which they could not render services as efficiently as earlier. So there was little financial crisis that they faced. And then the next challenge is lack of awareness of the COVID-19 guidelines issued by the World Health Organization. People or the migrant laborers who were in so much or desperately in need of the supplies that Amrita mentioned, like food and other kits that they were been providing by the volunteers, that they were not maintaining the COVID-19 guidelines, which is maintaining social distancing and things like that. So making the people maintain social distancing and things like that was a little tedious for them. And fear of COVID-19, the volunteers themselves were a little fearful, and then they were scared whether they would get affected by COVID-19. But despite all this, they still worked for the benefit of the people, keeping aside their fear. And then lack of database of the benefited people. Now, the volunteers of the voluntary organizations, while they were providing supplies to the people, they didn't have a little record of the benefits that they were providing for the people. So due to which people who were benefiting were getting benefited again and again. So there was a little unequal distribution of resources at that time. And then there was lack of transportation. So this, the volunteers face a little difficulty in terms of transportation and reaching to the community. So despite all these challenges, the voluntary organization, they worked in a very dedicating manner towards the benefit of the society in enhancing their condition, especially during the pandemic situation. So this is how they worked for it. Let's look into the advocacy measures to how they've helped the migrant workers, especially women. So now, initially, while the pandemic situation was there, the government had brought a rule stating that the government will supply the goods, be it the ration or any kits that were there, they were supposed to give it directly. So the NGOs or the voluntary organizations, they went and then they advocated. They advocated and they sought permission by the government, and then they were granted permission so that they could directly go and then provide them with all the supplies. Then also they approached the labor welfare board so that they could draw some benefits for the migrant laborers in terms of their transportation, or then arranging certain facilities for transportation, certain funds for them, and all of that. Also, they created awareness about the COVID-19 situation. They created posters. They, took away certain myths that were prevalent in the society then. They also prepared certain IEC material for them so that they were aware of what is happening in the community and how they should be facing such a situation, because this is very unknown and new to all of them at that point of time. So I would like to conclude by telling that despite all these challenges and all of that, voluntary organizations have worked for the benefit of the people of the society, especially the women migrant laborers. And then the areas of each voluntary organization were different. They were working for different sectors, children and all of that. But leaving all their specific areas, they worked for the community and their benefit in general. And basically because migrant workers, they had loss of income, there were job insecurities and things like that. So they worked in a very efficient manner for benefiting them and to also cater to their needs during the pandemic situation. And also like how efficiently the voluntary organizations have worked, that's how our system also should be updated and work in such a way. The government also should implement the models that the voluntary organizations have been implemented, so that we can have a smooth functioning of the processes that have been conducted in the community and the society as well. So this is how we would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very interesting talk. Many thanks to Dr. Karalam and her co-researchers. I would like to now introduce the next speaker. That's Sabur Afrin Rizwani from Etiraj College for Women in Chennai. Are you there? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, Sabur ma'am. Afrin ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Madam, are you there?
I think she is unable to.
I don't see her on the screen at all, so I'm not sure. Is it just an issue of unmuting, or
Yeah, if you can on the video, we can see, ma'am. Ma'am, shall we go ahead with Nabia? Meanwhile, we will search.
Yes, yeah, that's a good idea. Then I'd like to introduce Murunuri Navia, Research Assistant at the Center for Human Security Studies. Thank you so much for being here. And she will be speaking on gender perspective in understanding migration of women, empowerment through integration. Thank you so much. Then I will head over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Daniela ma'am, for introducing me. I am Navya. I am a graduate from Miranda House in political science, and I'm currently pursuing my research at Center for Human Security Studies. Today, first of all, I'd like to apologize to you all for not presenting a PPT, but I'll just try to kind of give a gist about what my paper is. And my paper is the gender perspective in understanding migration of women, and it is empowerment through integration. So first of all, it always goes without saying that now the world is a globalized one, and citizens are actually vigilant about their governments now more than ever, and the technology is pacing up. But if there's a certain peculiar question that's always left unanswered despite the mystical development of the modern era, that is how women are being treated on par with men at their workplaces. Like at different levels, like societal, household, women keep facing discrimination, often in different and unaccounted forms. So the patriarchal legacies of the society still does not intend to make peace with the fact that women are now stronger today and have always been. So migration of women has become common, especially for the purpose of livelihood, and it is actually beneficial to foster women for their improvement while bringing about the notion of integration into society through their work. So, however, in today's society where everything is reduced to a mere commodity, women often face discrimination in the name of gender, race, social norms, traditions, and other unaccounted forms at various capacities, like such as workplace. So it actually impedes the growth of women empowerment and sets them back from becoming independent or traveling for the purpose of work, which might actually empower women if given a chance to do. So for some women, this might actually help for their sustenance, and for some women, this might actually be a necessity for them to migrate. So in such a conditions, when women are not given a chance to migrate, there is a huge kind of impact that is negative in nature that falls on the society itself. So my paper, like the gender perspective, it aspires to shed light on the fact that women's human rights should be protected, and also the provision of various incentives like legal and financial benefits along with the health services should be provided by the employers. And it also intends to suggest that the government must corroborate the migrant women and promote policies that provide a non-discriminatory work practices, like non-discriminatory environment for women at work. So as I told, women are migrating now more than ever. So if Western education is one of the reasons why women are choosing to migrate, economic opportunities still be one of the main factors that has been helping women migrate over the years. So today, it is noted that when women migrate, some women actually migrate according to their will, as I said, for economic opportunities or for education. But some women, whereas, are forced to migrate in the form of for work or for the familial aspect, or like the, as I said, the marriage aspect, or the some other like a human trafficking also. So this whole trend of migrating and the increase of migrating has been termed the feminization of migration. They introduced the concept of femininity in the migration, and it is increasing. Now they say that more than the rate of female migration is increasing, and around 70 to 80% of the people are migrants today. So there are various forms that will, introduce women to several different concepts from the moment they think of migrating to the phase where they actually migrate. So this is based on several different ideas behind migration. First, how, like, I'm going to tell you all about how the idea of migration will help women transform, and what are the influences behind it, and what are hindering them, what are not hindering them as such. One is familial concept. So when a woman thinks of migrating, she sometimes realizes that she is not the decision maker in the house, since she does not have an immediate idea of migrating. Like as soon as she thinks of migrating, she cannot just pack her bags and go. So this subordination of women that has been happening in the patriarchal society since a very long time often hinder the women migration, although they have the greater opportunity. Next is the transition and the policies of the countries that receive migrants. So it is not to be assumed that all the countries that receive women are a kind of Western in nature. Like many countries are more restricting, more discriminant, and more stricter in rules when it comes to women and women migration. So it might be often very difficult to women from Western culture to exist in societies like that. And like for example, some countries do not allow the migration of women from their country, and at the same time they do not allow women migration into the country because of the idea of women and their migration as a whole. For example, when a woman goes from United States of America to Arab countries, it is most not likely that she'd be treated as free as she used to be treated back in America. So that is the second factor that mainly influences the migration of women. And third, the position of women in the society. So often we see that many women migrant workers are not treated the same when they come back to their homes, and they're like mostly alienated, as Dr. Sangeeta Desai was speaking. They might be alienated from the family, and they might not receive the same amount of love and care that they were receiving before. So these are the factors that have been hindering women, like some of the factors and most dominant factors that have been hindering women from pursuing the idea of migration. And like this, moreover, if they think like this is okay, and if they go to migrate to other countries, the discriminatory, keeping the discriminatory policies aside, often the countries receiving the migrants might not mark all of them as independent migrants, whereas some countries can mark women migrants as dependent migrants. So many countries have different policies that they tend to like mark or account the migrants as, And in some countries, women might not get that amount of free movements or citizenship rights of after working for years and years. So that is also a concept that is needed to be taken into account here.
Navia, madam, 3 more minutes. Yeah, is that all right? Thank you
Yes,
so
yes,
much.
that's all right. So I'd like to talk about the vulnerabilities of female migration now. So not every woman who migrates find life easier and compelling. So there are many vulnerabilities of female migration attached to the notion of the very self. So one is increased discrimination at workplaces and the residential areas of the receiving countries. And second is, according to the United Nations, women actually make up to 73.4% of the international migrant workers, and actually 26 countries have ratified the ILO Convention on Domestic Workers. So this means many countries do not provide equal rights to work, and this inevitably brings the burden of being overworked or unequal treatment at work. And third is possibility of sexual abuse, rape, or verbal abuse against women. And fourth is discrimination in terms of race and religion, like religious hate crimes took away the lives of many migrants. So apart from this, there might be the emotional imbalance, like the fear of being away from their family. And the next one is the possibility that they might miss the affection and care that they receive at their home. And many women migrants are now not being accepted by their husbands and families, and this might result in divorce. So it is only happening because there is no specific scope for the female migration. There is no specific authorization or a policy that protects the rights of women workers. So women, in order to include in all of this, should be empowered. That means we should create a solid criteria and implement it for the inclusion and integration of women for the development of peaceful, inclusive, and cohesive societies that provoke the need for shared values and diverse societies. And when women migrate to different parts of the world, they educate themselves and realize their rights. So when they come back, there is a higher possibility that they might be able to share a greater amount of knowledge that they incurred while they were in other countries. So given all of these positive effects that it has on the society, it is very necessity that women migrants should be provided with greater amounts of rights, special protection, and the equal amount of recognition at their workplaces, which induces more amount of women migration. So that's all for it. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this very interesting presentation. I think Sabur madam is here. Is that correct? Did I understand that properly? Hello? Hello?
Am I audible, ma'am?
Hello?
I think Sabur ma'am is trying to share her screen, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Yes. Okay, in that time I can already introduce her. Yeah, her paper will be the feminization of migration, issues and challenges. And she's at Itiraj College for Women in Chennai. And we can see the slides. So I just hand over to you. Yes. Is the unmuting working? I'm not sure.
Rizwanama?
Because I can't hear anything. Can you hear?
Only
She is on unmute, but we are not able to hear her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Only we are able to see her screen.
Yeah, maybe you can check your microphone, or also, you know, whether you are unmuted on your computer. Madam, are you trying? Maybe you can write in the chat what's the situation.
Can you hear me, ma'am?
It's very low volume. Can you try to speak up a bit?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear now?
It's slightly better, but maybe if you come closer to your computer.
Yes, ma'am. Now is it okay, ma'am?
It's getting better, but maybe you try to speak as loud as possible
Okay,
and
ma'am.
stay
So
close
good
to your
afternoon one
screen.
and all, ma'am. I'm Sabur Afrin Rizwana from Etiraj College. It gives me immense pleasure to be a part of this virtual conference. Now, I'm presenting on the feminization of the migration issues and challenges as a literature review. Women have traditionally been considered companions to their husband in the migratory process. Most adult migrant women today are employed in their own right. Understanding the intricacies of gender and migration can result in programs and policies that enhance the benefits and decrease the economic and social costs for the female migrants who make up half of the global migrant population. The link between domestic work and the female international labor migration is well established. The growing demand of household for domestic services is considered to be one of the main triggers of the feminization of the labor migration, which we have witnessed in past decades. But women migrant workers are particularly at the risk of discrimination, abuse, and exploitation. Most women contribute more than men in destination countries in professions such as caregivers while contributing even more to the well-being of their families. Meanwhile, the number of women migrant workers committing suicide is on the increase. Abuse of women migrant workers are more intensified. They are often denied the most basic labor protection, personal security, healthcare, and education for their children. They often face abuse and harassment at international borders based on race, identity, and age, and often they risk being trafficked or enslaved and sexually assaulted. Women are increasingly migrate on their own, often to enhance economic opportunities by seeking jobs or education. Data indicate that the rate of female migration is growing faster than male migrants in many countries that receive high level of migrants. This trend is commonly referred to as the feminization of migration. Understanding the role of women in migration involves not just disaggregating data by sex, but also understanding how gender relations play into each aspect of the migration cycle. A gender analysis may offer a perspective on gender relation, how gender affects access to resources and differences in power and equality in economic and social legal structures. Feminization of migration. This is a multidimensional phenomenon. First, women are on the move as never before in history. Second, there is a growing demand for migrant women labor in destination countries, especially in the care, domestic, and manufacturing sectors. Migration can take many forms. Migration may be temporary, permanent, or circular. However, the exact purpose of the migration may be difficult to define or may change over time. Even more challenging to define is internal migration, whereby migrants stay within country borders but move across provinces, states, or municipalities. The parameters become unclear as cities grow and consume satellite towns. Major causes. Major causes of the women migration are supposed to be economic complexity, political instability, and patriarchal mindset. Here, focus has been given to the patriarchal notion, for it underestimates women's capacity and considers them as a subordinate to men. It tries to hammer into women's minds since childhood what is good and what is not. Different studies show women who were married off early or married to alcoholic husband or economically and socially vulnerable person often choose labor migration as they neither had access to land or support from their husband. Facing harsh harassment, gender-based violence, domestic and sexual violence, and injustice. And in search of a better life, they go abroad even if this entails risk. Unemployment, Family debt, lack of awareness, peer pressure, and illiteracy and false promises are other factors that prompt women labor migration. Historically, women were thought to migrate primarily for marriage or family reunification, both internationally and internally. According to a survey in India, marriage was the cause of 89% of the rural female migration in and 59% of urban female migration. Again, I would like to highlight women are increasingly migrate on their own to enhance economic opportunities by seeking jobs and education. The IOM reports that more than half of global migrants are women migrating independently or as a head of household. Research also indicates that poor women migrate. In Bangladesh, 80% of the female domestic workers came from landless homes compared with only 50% of the male and female garment workers. Some migration may be due to individual reason instead of motivated by families such as single mothers, widows, and divorcees also migrate. Women experiencing gender-based violence, domestic abuse, unhappy marriage, or a lack of appropriate employment opportunities may also be more inclined to migrate. Issues and challenges. When women receive remittances, family welfare improves. It also improves the well-being of the family and autonomy, human capital, and self-esteem. Although migration is largely beneficial, there are many constraints that limits its gain, such as restrictive social norms or laws, gender and racial discrimination. The change in parenting and separation can be difficult even with increased access to telecommunications. Due to illiteracy, many women can hardly read the contract paper and terms and conditions. Documents like citizenship, passport, visa, and other necessary official documents are prepared by the agents. The plight snowballs when they reach destination countries, first of all due to language barriers. All migrants are vulnerable to abuse and exploitation, but female migrants are particularly at risk. Lack of shelter, overcrowding in camp, poorly lit public toilets all increase the risk of gender-based violence, including sexual violence. Women and girls can suffer doubly from these attitudes, experiencing not only discrimination based on their migrant status, but also based on their gender. This can take form of discrimination, mistreatment, including sexual harassment in the workplace while seeking housing while using public transportation. While traveling,
Madam, a few more minutes, yeah? Thank you very much.
while traveling and even after reaching the intended destination, women may lose access to sexual and reproductive health care, including family planning and safe childbirth. Lack of these services can be deadly. Impacts of the COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic and also, foreign-born migrants can face significantly higher risk of maternal injury and death than native-born women, for example, the higher risk of HIV infection, trauma, and violence. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on migrants around the world. 8.5 million women migrant domestic workers on insecure contract are facing some income loss and much greater risk of abuse and exploitation. Therefore, the rights, ensuring access to the essential services such as health, police, justice, and social services for all migrant women and sexual and gender minorities, including victims and survivors of the gender-based violence. Migrants should be protected regardless of the status. It should come as no surprise that women play a major role in the migration as a workers. Yet, this key economic contribution has been ignored in the past and continues to be so today when they suit employers and the government. Therefore, the paper recommends that government should ratify treaties and strict conventions promoting rights and protections for the migrant women as well as promote non-discrimination women's access to labor markets, thereby ensuring safety of the migrants. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity.
Thank you very much for your presentation. That was very enriching. Thank you. One moment. Yes. I would like to then proceed, with the next paper. That's Mahati and Anjali from St. Anne's College for Women, and they will speak on migration versus education in the City of Pearls of India. Are both presenters present?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, wonderful.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Then I hand over to you. Yes? Yeah, we can see your slides.
Good afternoon, one and all. Good afternoon, one and all.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, so sorry. Yeah. Good afternoon, one and all. So I am Y. Anjali, and my co-presenter is G. Mahati. We are from the Department of Statistics. We are students from Department of Statistics. And here from St. Anne's College for Women, and here to present our paper on migration versus education in the City of Pearls, that is Hyderabad.
Migration of women is their movement from one place to another to settle at a new place, and this could be temporary, that is for a specific tenure, or it could be permanent. Usually the movement is over long distances, like from one country to another, but people can also migrate internally within a country or a state or a district. There are many such ways, but internal migration is observed to be more prominent form of human migration globally. Most of the migrants are adults. Since education is identified as the most important aspect in changing of the social, economic, and intellectual status of an individual, adult migrant education plays a vital role, which is the practice where adults are exposed to a systematic way of learning, which is far beyond the traditional one and helps them to gain different skills, values, and knowledge. However, there are a few challenges that migrants face in the new city, like not knowing the language of the place, lack of awareness of local policies and rights, since every place has its own set of rules. Legal status also plays an important role. Migrants may face discrimination and get only limited access to educational resources. The main challenge is that adults lack cognitive abilities, that is, learning and understanding through thought and experience. Additionally, there are gender-based constraints, hence females face restrictive social and cultural norms, racial and gender discrimination, and specific gender vulnerabilities. They're often restricted from studying and are expected to take care of the family, whereas men are expected to take up early employment, and most of them end up quitting schools and face discrimination.
Of study. As we have seen, migration affects the economy of the nation and also the human existence. Migration is also important for the transfer of manpower and skills and provides the needed knowledge and innovation for global growth. For migrants, integration is a crucial part, and education plays a vital role here. So hence, it is important to understand and know the concerns of challenges faced by the migrants. The challenges faced by the respective genders when and women are different. Solution to one may not work for other. Gender equity and gender equality play a vital role in the development of society. Hence, it is important to study it from a gender perspective to find out an effective solution for leading to sustainable growth and development. This can be enumerated by 2 time points, that is Census 1991 and 2001, which we collected from Ministry of Home Affairs Information Portal. The data we have used using the diagrammatic representations with MS Excel and percentage analysis was also made. Migration and education in India. India is a land of unity in diversity. It is one of the developing countries in the world and has an average economic growth of about 7.5%. Pandemic is, however, an exception. Over the last 40 years, India has seen a largest internal migration any country has seen till now. The total population, that is 102.8 crores, 30% of them are migrants. In that, migrants within the state of enumeration is found to be largest, which constitutes 84.2%, and migrants from the other countries constitutes only 2%. Coming to the literacy rate in India, it is observed to be 65%, and the male and the female literacy rates are 64% and 39% respectively. Coming to the literacy rate in migrants, it is only 39.8%, where male and female literacy rates are 66.7 and 29.5 respectively, which shows a glaring difference between male and female literacy rate among migrants and also the population. There are many results to migration. It could be due to better educational employment or better living facilities, or forced migration due to pandemics, wars, famines, or other natural disasters. The main reason for female migration is observed to be marriage, which constitutes 64.9%. And for education and employment, it is only 1.3% and 3.2% respectively. For the male, the main reason is employment, which constitutes 37.6%. And for education, it is only 6.2%. Education and employment are the factors for the empowerment of citizens, which is negatively skewed at a large rate in females compared to male.
Migration and education in the city of Pearls, Hyderabad. Hyderabad, the mega city and the second fastest growing metropolitan cities in the world, has an economic growth of about 8.47%. According to 2001 census, out of 1.5 million migrants, there were about 46% female and 54% male migrants. The sex ratio for the total population was found to be 970, whereas for migrants it was just 860. We observed that the number of female migrants is more, but that of literate female migrants is less. Most of them migrate due to family reasons and marriage, and very few of them migrate for education and business. So there is a need to educate adult migrants, especially women. If we see the educational attainment or index of women, most of them are illiterate, that is about 43%, or among the ones who discontinued their education at a very young age for various reasons. Only a few of them are graduates with a prestigious degree from good universities. 28% of them are literate but couldn't complete their high school. Just 2% of them could manage to get their diploma in technical studies. Now moving to results. In India, migration rate was high within the districts, followed by inter-districts, inter-country and inter-country. The volume of female and male migrants increased in the megacity during 2001 and 1991. The percentage of females though declined. Percentage of female migrants was high in Hyderabad. It was about 49% in 1991, but it declined by 8.8% in 2001. The proportion of female migrants to total female population again declined. Migration is a social phenomenon which is influenced by both underdevelopment as well as development. If we see, a significant proportion of women are migrating to the megacity for various economic reasons like business, which was about 0.7% in 1991 and 2001, and employment, it was about 7% in 2001, and also education, it was a little least, like it was about some 2% in both 1991 and 2001.
To conclude, the results greatly differ between men and women in both India and as well as Hyderabad. Education can fill the gender gap, and thereby it can change the way people think and lead to in a progressive manner. Initiatives taken by the government to promote the value of education, setting up skill-oriented classes, value-added education, and giving awareness of better and making improved adult migration educational policies, taking gender into consideration, can help achieve growth and development. Reduction in the constraints and also uniform legal policies and protection rights can be beneficial for the migrants. The educational facilities can not only help in reduction of various deep-rooted problems, it can also help to tackle with hindrances like dowry and bride burning, unequal pay, and all those which restrict the upliftment of women and men. Which can lead to sustainable growth in economic, social, political, and individual aspect, and also leading to living in harmony. Nowadays, we can witness a lot of women migrating. but it should be in a way that it should be for education and employment, and thereby empowerment of women also. Numbers can show us the significance, but the story can impact. Here is a real life story. Saritama is a migrant from in Hyderabad, and she is from a village in Rajasthan, where women are not access to employment or educational facilities. Her husband, who used to work as a porter in the railway station in Hyderabad, suddenly died due to an accident. She also used to face a lot of domestic violence from her husband. She was uneducated, language was a barrier, and adaptability was an additional problem to the new place. And now she was determined to take the job for the sake of her children. A person from an NGO spotted her and inquired about her, seeing a female porter among more than 50 males. So she came to know about various skill-oriented classes and other classes government has to offer for the migrants and underprivileged people. But legal status and legal documents were again an issue, which the NGO people again helped her out with it, which is how she learned other skills like stitching and other which are having less physical strain and ensure more money. And this is how she started understanding the importance of education, and also that women can also be the sole breadwinners of the house. And she started sending both her children to school. So here we understand that the education can empower any people, irrespective of their gender. Importance of awareness is very important among the masses. NGO people have told her, or else she wouldn't know. And there are many people like Sarita Amma out there. And importance of education for both and men and women. Thank you. And hope you all have a nice day.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. Thank you to both of you. And I would like to go ahead with the presentation by Ratnashri and Sri Lakshmi from St. Anne's College for Women. And they will speak on plight of Malaysian women migrant workers due to COVID-19. Are both presenters here?
Ma'am, I am present. Sri Lakshmi couldn't join the meeting because of a few connectivity issues. I will be presenting the paper.
Okay, thank you very much. Then I hand over to you, yes?
Oh,
thank
yes.
you.
Good afternoon, one and all. Today, I am Ratnashri, and today I am here to present my paper on the topic Plight of Women Migrant Workers in Malaysia due to the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 has exposed deep-seated inequalities in our society, with women, especially migrant women, bearing the maximum impact. In 2019, out of an estimated 272 million migrants, 66.6 million were women who lived outside their countries of origin. Due to pandemic, 8.5 million women are facing income loss, greater risk of abuse and exploitation across the globe. According to Malaysian Home Ministry, in 2006, there were about 136,213 foreign domestic workers in Malaysia. Around 100 million women migrants send remittances yearly, but they end up paying 20% more than men. The pandemic consequences are not impacting everybody equally, but are hitting the most vulnerable sections of society, that is the women and elderly. 67 million workers around the world migrate, out of which 11.5 are in Malaysia. Remittances from Malaysia are sent to various countries such as Bangladesh, Cambodia, Indonesia, etc. Recently, Talian Kasi Hotline for Women and Children in Malaysia reported 51% increase in violence during the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as 68% increase in mental health of women due to the overburden at home. Also, Women's Aid Organization revealed that 40% calls reported violence. The following picture shows the distribution of women migrants internationally across the globe. A keen observation reveals that there are more percentage of women in the elderly age group. The pandemic underlined that women are the most burdened with childcare, elderly, but are uncared, unpaid for their work that they render. Many studies suggest that increase in school dropout rates may lead to early child marriages, pushing women more susceptible to subjugation.
My study highlights the present scenario of women migrants in Malaysia and tries to draw conclusions based on the highlighted case studies on Rohingyas and Bangladeshis who are living there. Since the onset of lockdown, MMC Asia, that is Mixed Migration Center, had been interviewing Rohingyas and Bangladeshis regarding their experiences and protection against the COVID-19. MMC Asia in Malaysia targets at building evidences and proofs for underground realities faced by migrant women in Malaysia. Between May 1st and June 26th, 119 telephonic interviews were conducted with 76 Rohingyas and 40 Bangladeshis. The average age of Rohingyas was around 24 and that of Bangladeshis was around 30. Now, so in the first survey, when they were asked regarding the worry regarding the transmission of virus, Rohingyas responded more in number than Bangladeshis, that you can see in the chart. 74 out of 79 Rohingyas reported worry, while only 2 out of 40 Bangladeshis reported worry respectively. This shows that Rohingyas had more knowledge and were more susceptible to change in the ongoing pandemic around the world. In the next survey, when there were questions regarding the impact of COVID-19 on their day-to-day activities, a majority of them, that is 83 respondents out of 119, reported that they had reduced access to work, and the next majority cited many reasons such as non-availability to basic goods, increased worry and anxiety due to the pandemic. Next is a comparative study of Rohingyas and Bangladeshis, and the findings are as follows. Compared to Bangladeshis, more percent of Rohingyas reported that they were unable to afford basic goods. 33% Rohingyas complained of loss of housing due to the pandemic, and 15% Bangladeshis, while 15% Bangladeshis reported loss of housing. None of the Rohingyas felt that they were unable to continue their journey, whereas almost 18% of Bangladeshis had a problem with their journey. Next, this is a specific study conducted on Bangladeshis regarding their migration journey due to the COVID-19 pandemic. They responded, 22% felt that there was a reduced access to smugglers, which is a positive side of COVID-19. And they also cited many reasons such as increased risk to confinement, and also opined that there is an increased risk in movement due to the pandemic. Okay, so Mixed Migration Monitoring Mechanism Initiative is MMC Asia's flagship that is an approach to inform policy-making institutions regarding mixed migration movements. Surveys were administered by telephone by the 4 MI monitors in West Africa, East Africa, North Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Continuous support is being rendered to the Malaysian migrant women, and regular monitoring is being carried on to reach out to the ill treatment. MMC is keeping an eye on the adversities being faced by Malaysian migrant women. Although the data may not be a representative of the whole population, but there is this agency to reach out to and claim the subjugations. So I have come to the end of my presentation, and here I have a few suggestions to make. And the first one is, pandemic is not gender neutral, so the policies need not be. Design of policies and programs have to focus on gender dimension, and representation of women in crisis management process has to be noted. And the next one is, about 75 to 90% of the frontline workers are women across the globe, and are they really being provided the healthcare equipment like PPE kits and all? If yes, how many in reality are getting an access to the healthcare equipment? Their safety has to be considered and prioritized. After all, a strong woman stands for herself, but a stronger woman stands for everybody. Thank you.
Danila ma'am, please unmute.
Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you so much. That was a very informative paper. Thank you. And also our thanks to Sri Lakshmi, even though she couldn't be here. And I would like to now start with the discussion. So please let me know if you have any questions to one of the presenters about their papers. Does anyone have a question? Would someone like to come forward? If not, I can start with the question, but I thought maybe the audience would like to join in. No question yet? Then I would like to...
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Pradipta Ranjan wants to speak.
Oh, yes, I see. Was that in the chat maybe? Okay, yes, please.
Aparna ma'am, can you please unmute him? Sir, you can unmute yourself. You are the co-host. Sir, you can unmute yourself. You are the co-host.
Yes, yes. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Actually, this is a question for Madam Daniela Dora, though she was not one of the presenters. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Actually, ma'am, I'm a sociologist. I've been practicing sociology since last 20 years. I have a fundamentally different question, not relating to this pandemic or something like that, but it relates to women. Actually, why I say so, because I have been listening to many speakers in different e-conferences, virtual seminars or something like that. So I failed to understand one thing, that many of them harp on a uniform policy towards women on any issue, whether with reference to this pandemic or general issues or something like that. But my fundamental question is that since women do not form a uniform group by themselves, they do not form a uniform group by themselves. I hope you follow me. Now, they have differential access to resources. So depending on their access to resources, don't you think that we harp on policies separate for different groups differently? So target specific or group specific women, because you know women are also there are also stratification in the women category, belonging to the higher class, belonging to the working class, belonging to the middle class. So don't you think that it will be imperative on our part to think on different policies for different groups of women, or need specific or target specific approach should be there while dealing with the problems of women? Thank you. This is my question.
Very much. I think that's a very good question, because it touches upon several things that I also wanted to ask, or I think which were visible in the presentations. I think it's very interesting what Navya madam told, that there are women who actually migrate on their own will, because they would like to, because they feel there is a benefit for their lives and their careers. And then there's forced migration, and we have even seen within forced migration there's a lot of variation. So I think your question is very valid, but I think we always have to go back to the grassroots level, that we first of all need policies as such, and I think that's already a big struggle, and a struggle enough to implement those policies, that it would probably go too far to already differentiate between policies. So I think the major first step should be having policies in place, and then the other really major step, which I also wanted to ask Sabur madam, that the government should have policies and give women access to services, but it also needs to be implemented. So I think we should focus a lot more on the implementation. So I hope this this helps with putting your question in perspective.
Thank you, ma'am. You have put things into right perspective. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Do any participants have questions? You can write in the chat or also let
Dr.
me know.
Mangala, you can go ahead. I guess you had a question.
Maybe you can unmute yourself. I can't see in the chat if anyone else wanted to ask a question. Is there someone? Are there any new questions?
Dr. Mangala has raised her hand, but she's not in the list now.
Yeah, I have to see. I'm not able to see her.
Yeah. Ma'am, you can unmute yourself. Dr. Mangala, ma'am. Yeah, you are the co-host. You can unmute yourself. Danila, ma'am, I think you can go ahead.
Yes. Should I then ask a question? Yes?
You can,
Okay.
yes,
Yes.
to the paper presenter.
Yes. Yeah, I think the student presentations were also very interesting. So I would like to ask Mahati and Anjali, you mentioned the literacy rates, and I just wonder whether in those studies that you've consulted, is there any indication of how literacy rates change through migration? I wasn't sure whether that, was something you had a look at too, because you showed very nicely the difference between the gender literacy. But then I was sure if the act of migrating and then working as migrant women does have an impact on this or not at all. Anjali madam and Mahati madam, could you maybe address the question if you're there? Not sure if they've heard.
Hello.
Anjali madam?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat it? What the
Yes.
question is? There was a network issue. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Don't worry. Yes, you've shown the difference in the literacy rates among migrant workers, men and women, and I just wonder if you in those studies could also see, or if it was at all estimated, if migration as such had an impact on the literacy rates. Did that change anything or not at all?
Yes, ma'am. It had a lot of impact on the literacy.
Yeah, Anjali, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Mahati was speaking. I'm sorry. So the question I think is if there are a lot of population of migrants in the population of the nation, do they impact? Is it the question? I'm sorry, it was too low.
Yes, if there is an impact, yeah, on the literacy once you start migrating, yeah, as
yes.
Does that change anything, improve anything, or is there no added value in terms of the literacy?
Oh yes, when one person migrates, I told you because of various reasons, they migrate. But if the facilities are already in their own place, then there was no reason to migrate unless and until it is on their own will and something. So if if you are taking it in that consideration, while migrating, because they don't have that facilities in their own place, and that is why they are migrating. So when they are migrating to the other place, there is a lot of impact that is happening on the other state in place of human existence. For example, if we take, as Ratnashri said about the Rohingya refugees, or also about the Bangladeshi migrants coming to Assam or something. So it is like they are the space, the place is the place given to it them. So the population increases in the place, that will thereby lead to more use of resources and less of the resources. So all of them should be considered. Here the education facilities and other uh, facilities should increase for the migrants, and also in their own native places the facilities should improve so that people would like to stick to their own place more than migrating to another place for better opportunities.
Okay, thank you very much. There are several questions in the chat, and I'm not sure, Dr. Sangeeta, would you like to add directly to this answer or something mentioned in the chat?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe you can, yes. One moment, you have to unmute yourself. I think you, yes.
Yeah. So, yes, I wanted to add.
It's a bit low in volume. Maybe you can increase the volume a little bit.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to add to this, to what Anjali has already mentioned. It depends again upon what region are you migrating to. So if you are migrating, and for how long are you migrating? So if you are migrating to a city like Mumbai, which has got plenty of opportunities available for schooling for your children, then obviously, and if you have taken your children along with you, then it impacts the next generation of people. Maybe the parents are not migrated, but the children can get better education facilities. But if you're talking about migration which is happening from a tribal area to maybe some similar place and only for 6 months, then what happens in this case, in that case, is that the children get dropped out of the school, because it's the seasonal migration that we are talking about. So it is the destination is as important as the source from where you are migrating, for how long you are migrating, what kind of work that you are migrating. So if it's an auto rickshaw puller who is coming from Uttar Pradesh to Mumbai or to better cities, obviously the opportunities are much, much more. So we have to take in, it cannot be one specific answer. I think one has to look at region specific, culture specific, location specific, and the community specific, and there cannot be one standard answer to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We had another question by Ahmed, madam. Could you maybe ask your question?
Mama, I think we can take from the chat box.
If that's the same question, yes.
Yes,
So
how?
So the question would be, how can we prevent development aid like migrant women being used inappropriately by the government, which is corrupt? I think it's, you know, any presenter who feels like they can answer this question, it would be great if you could contribute. Yeah, because I think it's probably a question that addresses all. I can repeat the question maybe that helps. How can we prevent development aid like migrant women being used inappropriately by the corrupt government? Would anyone who actually works on development aid address this question?
I'm Rukmini here. If you
Yes.
can hear me, I could answer. I think the first issue is that development aid hardly ever reaches migrant women. So I think that question needs to be taken in two parts. One is that the women who are migrating, especially from interior villages to urban communities, etc., they are the most marginalized. Not only have they not got any development aid from any countries outside, but our own government and our own countries' district administrations are not able to reach these women. I think some of the papers that were presented earlier here clearly indicate that areas from which, for example, the paper from Nandurbar, it is showing how many villages don't have roads, the lack of health facilities, the lack of basic infrastructure. So that is a whole issue which has to be looked at, that people migrate because they don't have basic services in their own area. So that's one answer, one part of the question. The second part of the question is corrupt officials. What happens to a migrant laborer who needs to access food? In some states, they are allowed to access basic food need with a ration card. But if the local people are corrupt, they will not allow him or her to use that card. And these cases are known. They do happen from time to time. What happens if a migrant worker is a bonded laborer in a bricklin, about which I'll speak a bit more later? They don't care. The officials don't care. They don't go and visit the sites which they're supposed to visit. What happens if bricklins owners are making children work? If it's a corrupt labor inspector, he will overlook the fact. He will say that children are just playing outside the house. So these instances do happen. On the other hand, now there is increased effort on the part of government to overcome these kind of problems. So we are trying, I think NGOs as well as local governments and honest officials do make an effort to rescue children who are working as bonded labor, etc. So I would say that as far as corrupt officials are concerned, it's a mixed picture. They're good and bad and ugly everywhere. And it's the same with the government officials.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rukmini, Madam. Thank you. I think that also answers Yoshi Madam's question, yeah, in how far the government is actually helping or not. So I think we've covered that question as well, which was posted earlier. Then there is a question by Namira Madam. She is asking, the migrant people are facing lots of loss because of traveling from one place to another, and how this can be prevented. If any of the presenters or anyone else in the audience would like to address this question. So how can loss, yeah, that happens on the move, yeah, when you travel, can be prevented, if at all?
If there are no answers forthcoming,
yes.
I would like to say that I think in the long term, it is Gandhiji's dream that you have local self-sufficient communities. People migrate because they need a better living, because they're not able to earn enough where they are. But if we could have local governance, we could have panchayats, which are able to provide employment for all the people who live in their area, then that would be fantastic. So the long-term answer is we need development in every village and every corner of the country where people are able to find work and able to live in their own homes. So they don't have to go looking for, situations where they can earn a few pennies more, a few rupees more, and live in great hardship elsewhere.
Yes, thank you so much.
Related to that is the earlier question about education. I mean, you lose education actually. You don't get educated because you're a migrant. You lose education, you lose educational opportunities when you're a migrant worker or come from a family of migrant workers. So local governance, self-development, self-sufficiency, sustainable development, all the words which we are using globally need to be applied to the local village. Then things will change.
Yes, thank you so much. I think that also adds to my question about literacy, that what you've just said. There are some more questions, so I'd like to see. Dr. Sundar Pandyan asked if we can answer the question. I'm not sure whether you mean we should go ahead with the discussion or whether
yes,
you would
ma'am.
like
Yeah, sorry for interruption.
No.
Yes, ma'am. We can send this answer through mail.
Yes.
Now we can go ahead for valedictory session.
Okay, sure. Yes, I understand. There are plenty of questions, but it might be better to answer them through email later on. Yeah. So
thank you for asking questions.
Thank you very much.
Indira ma'am, are you there? Yeah, Indira ma'am.
Now I was
Yes.
unable to unmute myself.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. We are winding up the technical session 4 now, and we are moving to valedictory session. So before that, I would like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Danila Dora ma'am and all the participants who are presented their papers and for having nice presentations today and making this session very interactive. So I would like to end this session with a quote: "Gratitude is a duty which ought to be paid." So thank you once again, ma'am, for sharing your valuable thoughts and spending your valuable time with us for this session.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was very nice to be part of this conference and panel. Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we are moving to valedictory session, and I hand over to Dr. Popinath.
Yes. Welcome to the valedictory session. I'm Miss Poppy, Organizing Secretary, Director of Center for Women's Studies in St. Anne's College. On behalf of St. Anne's College and NCW, I would like to extend warm welcome to the valedictory session, a 2 days e-conference on migrant women workers, issues and challenges. It is our privilege to have you with us. Today we have honored to have resource person, Dr. Rukmini Rao, feminist activist, founder director of Gramya Resource Center for Women in Hyderabad. Welcome you, ma'am. Welcome you, Rukmini, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can you please on your video so that we can see you?
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome you, ma'am. I welcome all the participants, eminent chair, prominent speakers for 2 days conference. I'm sure you will all agree with this that we have had very good deliberation, and I know many of us wants to share more, but because of the time constraint, we could not hear from you more. Definitely we will meet again. I hope and wish after this pandemic get over soon and we will meet offline. In St. Anne's, it is a tradition to welcome our guest with green greeting, green sapling. We have planted for Rukmini Rao ma'am a bountiful tree in Sanbia, West Siang, Arunachal Pradesh.
Wow. Thank you.
Welcome you, ma'am, with green sapling. It's my privilege to introduce our guest, Dr. Rukmini Rao, Executive Director, Gramya Resource Center for Women, Since 1976, working as an activist, striving to promote women's rights initially in Delhi and AP and Telangana. She has worked in Medak district with Deccan Development Society, provided gender issues to the government of Orissa, member of Board Aid Action, International Promotion of Education in 26 countries. She has served as president of Board South Asia 2012 to 2016, currently director of the company AEA, work with Government of India, National Labour Institute, and Public Enterprise Center for Continuing of Education, Ministry of Labour and Ministry of Industries as a consultant to the government on issues related education, women's rights, and farmer rights. Program officer of NORAD from 1986 to 1989 and carried out development of education in UK and Europe. She has received various fellowships and she has done extensive work in gender issues, land rights, tribal empowerment, women's rights all over the world. It is very big profile, but I have cut it down. She has done many minor and major research projects and published many articles. She is the coordinator and coordinated many programs, member of various international and national committees. We are honored and lucky to have you as an advisory member committee member of CWS, Center for Women's Studies in St. Anne's College. And it's our privilege to have you with us today. May I now request Dr. Rukmini ma'am to address the audience.
Thank you very much, Poppy, for those kind words. I would first like to start by congratulating the college as well as you personally and the Center for Women's Studies for organizing such a timely discussion and such an important discussion on what we need to do, what we need to reflect on, how the COVID pandemic and the migration has led to us to rethink many gender questions and to understand and to find a way of moving forward. First of all, I would like to say that the plentiful papers, it was a pleasure to see all the variety of papers that were presented in these 2 days. And I would like to draw upon the essence of all these papers and just make 4 or 5 points. One, we know that women are suffering from patriarchal injustices. So we know that women have second place in Indian families, a majority of them. And I'm particularly referring to the most marginalized, who are our migrant workers. They work hard, they do twice as much work, but as all your papers are showing, they don't reap the benefits that they should reap. They travel, but they're not educated. So, etc., etc. I don't want to repeat everything that the papers have said, but I want to bring 2 more issues to the table. One, some of you from Maharashtra especially may be aware of the study that was done of migrant sugarcane cutters from Beed district who travel, who migrate and who are cutting sugarcane and supply them to the and cut them for the factories. Now, what do we see there? We see migrant families, and because they're migrating, the young ones are married off very early. These are all the gender questions that get surfaced. The children are married off at 13 or 14 because to be a sugarcane cutter, the work is given out to families. So it's a couple. It has to be a husband and wife. So there's pressure to marry off the girls early so that they can earn. Okay. Once they go there and when they're working, together the husband and wife are earning about 450 rupees or something. It might appear like a lot of money, but it isn't. It's less, much less than the minimum wages that are supposed to be paid to anybody who's doing unorganized sector work. So, and these sugarcane cutters, because of the hard work that they have to do, very often also unhygienic conditions in which they live in the fields, suffer a lot. They suffer a lot of menstrual problems, other problems, and then because they have to bend over and work, they have issues with their uterus. And because they're in a new place, very often the women are also getting subject to malpractices by doctors. So we find that in Beed district, for example, in the last 3 years, among the sugarcane cutters, there were more than 650 women who had their uteruses taken out. So even if they go with a minor problem to the local doctor in a new place, they're just advising them to get their uterus out. And after that, they have more problems. So here you see that migration and lack of thought leads to health problems for women, and that is again linked back to institutional structures. Why is it that our government is unable to provide basic health services to women? So I would like some takeaways from these 2 days discussion. One is personal patriarchies, family patriarchies, patriarchies, men and women, between men and women, are oppressing women within the family. Then once you step out and see who are the people who are migrating, you know, it's not the upper caste people who are migrating. It's usually tribal communities, has very well come out in all the papers that were presented. Very often it is Dalit communities or other backward classes who are really the poorest of the poor. So now, so here we find a class, a caste, and a gender dimension coming together. So what we understand now is, and especially the pandemic has highlighted, there is not one kind of patriarchy. There are many, many kinds of patriarchies. And I think as a gender studies center, it's been a very important move to discuss this issue, and not only just say that, you know, men are alcoholic and they drink and they beat up their wife. Now the question is, if they're beating up the wife, what is the law doing? There is a law which is saying that violence against women is a crime. So is the law acting? Is the judicial system acting? Is the police system acting as it is supposed to act? So what we find is that the institutional structures which should be promoting women's rights, which should support migrant women to get minimum wages, better wages, which should provide social security to them. You know, the labor system, the labor officers, the whole system which is supposed to be geared to providing social services to women. Where are they? And if they are missing, why are they missing? Now, I can just speak for Telangana. You know, the government of Telangana is providing special support to farmers. So every farmer who owns 1 acre of land gets 5,000 rupees for every farming season. So you can imagine there are thousands of crores that are being distributed to farmers. But when a child is raped, when a migrant child is raped, for example, we have a case in Telangana where 2 girls who had migrated along with their families from Orissa came to Karimnagar district, and they were raped by the brick kiln owner. Now that case took several years to be resolved, and it could only be resolved because there was an organization following up the case, giving protection to the girl, etc. But if this support system was not there, the government on its own would not have taken up the case and brought justice to these girls. So, and we are finding that especially when women and girls are migrating, they are really facing a lot of issues in terms of sexual harassment, etc., for which there is no out. So the girls are not getting, like if there's a child rape, the child is entitled to get compensation. But our government says we don't have the money for it. So we have a long list in every district of, you know, girls who may have migrated and faced sexual abuse, or it could be within the families they have faced sexual abuse locally, but money is not available for such girls and women who need it the most. So here you see institutional patriarchy at work. You see a government which has a slogan which is saying Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, educate your daughter. But then we find that when it comes to actually supporting girls' education, there are much fewer hostels for girls than for boys. and there's no support in case of rape, etc., etc. So to bring all of it together, what I would like to say is that migration is here to stay. It's not as if migration is going to disappear in the coming years. It's here to stay locally, nationally, as well as internationally. Now, here again, we have the question of the push and pull factor in migration, which impacts women a lot. If people are okay, slightly better, but just go away for one season because it's a bad harvest year or something and come back, they are not so badly affected. But there are thousands and millions of families who are forced to migrate year after year after year, and the cyclical migration doesn't really help them to build huge assets or value for themselves. In case they are going and living in the city, then there's a complete change of circumstance. Their lifestyle and their living standards may improve. But if they are in the villages or traveling all the time, it doesn't change at all. Then we have the question of international migration. I know some of the papers have also talked about international migration. And what do we see when women are migrating internationally? We are finding, for example, from India, a lot of domestic workers are going to the Middle East, and they send huge amounts of money home in foreign exchange. But do they get any support? The answer simply is no. Sometimes, they are actually made into bonded laborers. They are almost jailed by their employers, who don't want them to go out of the house or report on them, etc., etc. In such cases, unless an NGO is involved and screaming and shouting and taking the Indian embassy to task in that particular country, we don't seem to get any response from the system itself. So here we also have a question of what happens when the women are earning there for many years and come back home. Do they have a better lifestyle when they return home? There are several studies going on at the moment in Kerala, as well as in coastal Andhra Pradesh, which is talking about the vulnerability of the women who return home. Because, and especially at a time like this now with the pandemic, when many women were forced to return home, I would say. Here you're finding a situation where the neighbors look down on you because you went away thinking, you will do well in life, but now you've come back, you've not at all done so well in life. Secondly, there is a lot of stigma attached to women who are migrating internationally because they are forced to leave their children at home. So, and also I know in Sri Lanka, for example, people just look down on mothers, saying that, what kind of a mother is she? She has left her child and gone away. So here is another kind of patriarchal, anti-women attitude where a woman is really struggling to feed her family and to create a better opportunity for her, who is being looked down upon by the rest of society. So I would say that as a concluding remark, that unfortunately or fortunately, migration is here to stay. Women who migrate, some women, especially if they are single women, if they are able to stay on longer in cities, etc., their life may change a little bit only. I will say only a little bit for the better. But the vast majority of women are not really getting a huge lot of gains from the migration. We do know that families and women come back with money when they come back to their villages, which is why they go year after year after year. But it's at a huge personal cost. It's at a huge personal cost. In my own area, I work in Nalgonda district. I followed up one family, husband, wife, and one child who had gone. They came back with about 50 or 60,000 rupees, that unit. But when I talk to the women, they are staying 100 to, or, the whole village, some 20 families migrate, then all the 20 of them are living in one small room. And they all cook together, they all sleep in the same hall, and the women have no privacy, very much at risk for sexual abuse, children are very much at risk for abuse. So and they don't have toilets, so they have to go out into the open, etc. So you see that whatever struggle the women are making and gaining something from their very hard work, they are really doing it at great cost to themselves, and they're doing it at great cost to their children. So I think in future, when we do more and more studies on the question of migration and look at the gender question, my request to all the researchers who are part of today's meeting is, please apply your mind. Let us look at what are the patriarchies that are operating to oppress women. What is it that we can do to help them to raise their standard of living in a genuine way? And not only just economically, but how can we ensure that women have a better and more dignified life? Because I would say the women in Bede who have gone off to work and earn a living, yes, they've got some money, but they've lost their uterus. So is that the kind of migration we want to support or promote? Or is there any other kind of migration that we have to think? Or is there any other kind of development that we should be looking at? So I think the migration studies would be very helpful if we look at the overall situation in the country, look at the intersectionalities of economics, politics, society, and try to come up with the solutions for the problem, and try to come up with the suggestions and recommendations as to how we can improve genuinely the lives of women who are migrating. And when they earn money, how do we secure their gains? Because I think some of the studies which I have seen, which were now even discussed at this conference, are showing that when the women are earning money, they're opening a bank account and it's put in the husband's name. So where does that leave her tomorrow when they get into a quarrel or a fight? Does she have anything in her hand? If land is bought in the village, which some families do manage to do, in whose name is that land owned? Is it in her name or is it in her husband's name? What happens tomorrow if her husband dies? We are finding very often in the villages that the families just send off young women. They just say, get lost. My son is dead. So what are you doing here? You go away. So how do we guard against such kind of future exploitations of women who are also migrating? So I would like to conclude by summing up by saying that let us continue our research work. Let us look at intersectionalities of migration, migrant women, men. Let us look at the positioning of the different patriarchies which are not allowing women to go beyond a certain point. Let us look at what is it that we can suggest, make recommendations so that migrating women are able to keep their assets, are able to help their girls, the daughters, to get more educated, can actually ensure that the next generation has a better life than they themselves had. So thank you all very much, and thank you for this opportunity, Poppy, and everyone at St. Francis College, at St. Anne's College. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share my few thoughts with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Now we'll move on to live feedback. Can I request Sangeeta Desai, ma'am, from SNDT University?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And firstly, I would like to congratulate the Center for Women's Studies, St. Anne's College, Hyderabad. I think this was, I have to say and I have to admit that this was one of the few conferences which had so much system and structure in place and conducted in such a timely manner. Right from I have been seeing since yesterday all the sessions that I've attended. I mean, this also means a lot. And we have to give credit to also the chairpersons who were heading that sessions, that each participant got equal amount of time And the technical support that was given by the organizing team also during this entire week that we have been maybe chasing for the presentations, chasing for the papers. I think that's a professional, that's a lot of professionalism that goes into making a successful conference. And I think all that was there, and also the themes that were demarcated so very well, so that there is no overlapping that was happening. I must say thank you to all the fellow presenters also, and especially the technical team of the St. Anne's College, because there were no two simultaneous presentations that were running around, because that also we normally get to see, or somebody just getting unmuted, or so, which also disturbs the present. So all these aspects were taken care of, and I think big thanks to the entire team, and hope you arrange many more such sessions, and not only arrange many more sessions, you come out with like how Rukmini ma'am just now said, suggestions and the recommendations that are getting reflected, maybe come out through a book or paper or something, so that it gets disseminated to everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sangeeta ma'am. Can I, yeah, Imrana ma'am? Yes, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Poppy for a very, very wonderful organization of the event, because whenever we see such events, there are so many glitches that occur. But yours went very much smoothly, bearing a few glitches. So it was very, very, what you say, and in a way engaging. And I hope that this discussion goes further beyond than this presentation. As Rukmini ma'am also said, we should all do our little bit, because when we tell about migrant communities, there is not only one migrant community. The women are from different areas, having their own different set of baggages. So this type of studies need to be done more and more, and at the same time this should also help in bringing some form of a change which should be outside the literature, because when we are talking, you and me, we are so much more privileged than the people we are talking about. So it should not be us and them. It should be overall, we should all try to make some formal effort from our own part to make their lives better, through our, not only from our through academics, but also through activism. We should all promote some form of activism. If you are not having the time to do it yourself, just try to contribute in some way to others who are working in your local area. I think that is very, very important, because we are doing all these forms of research, all these things will have no impact if we are not going to the ground level and helping those who are in need. So I hope with this, I would like to conclude that I hope this goes beyond the presentations and papers. It goes and reaches the community we are talking about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imrana ma'am. Imrana ma'am is from Guwahati University. We would like to hear from Yamini ma'am. She is from Calicut University.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Can we see?
Yeah.
You can on your video.
Oh, can I? Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't know if yeah, okay. So I thoroughly enjoyed this session, the valedictory lecture also, and both the days. I mean, this is something that one of the first things that when I started writing the paper was just that after the lockdown, one of those most impacting images that we saw was the migrant workers. And most of the photographs that was coming up in the media also was mainly focusing on men traveling. And very few were actually looking at where are the women, and that was something that really struck me even when the lockdown started. And this issue was like very pertinent issue has been addressed in these last 2 days, and I thoroughly enjoyed all the sessions and very varied views that came from varied parts of India, that some based on actually on field research and some on theory. So each of these issues were gleaned out very nicely throughout the session. And when we focused on gender dimensions of migration, or specific impacts of COVID, or looking at gender-based violence, the sessions that we had today, which integrated migration and development, and how does that dialogue pan out, each of those themes were so rightly selected, and I really enjoyed it. And I think it's contributed a lot to how I can assess my own paper, and I think it goes that way for all of the other paper presenters here. And and today when Rukmi ma'am was addressing the patriarchal biases, and the cost of a migrant worker a woman worker who's trying to raise a family, and the sexual and reproductive rights that are greatly hampered in this process, when she was talking about how women were kind of asked to take off their uteruses, and what is the cost of migrating and seeking out a better prospect for their lives and for the lives of their children. And it's very thought provoking, and intersectionalities and this multi-layered patriarchy that we are dealing with. I think women's agency, and how they can hold on to their assets, that's so important. And I really thank the organizers for organizing such a brilliant session, Poppy ma'am for coordinating this whole thing, and getting a lot of speakers and chairs on board for this, and coordinating with us paper presenters, and organizing this session so smoothly. And we really enjoyed it, and I'm so grateful that this has happened, and we are engaging in this dialogue with this, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you. And
thank you so much, Yamini ma'am. Actually, we have missed Dr.
Thank you so much for organizing this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yamini ma'am. Actually, we missed Dr. Jahida ma'am papers today. She wants to share the feedback of the conference.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Once a great man whisper, feeling thankfulness and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. I am greatly privileged and humbly honored to thank organizers. I take the opportunity to put all my gratitude into words. Words are not sufficient to thank the speakers and professors for spending their valuable time for a beneficial cause. Respected Rukmi ma'am, who graced us with her presence in this valedictory session, and we have been fortunate to be assisted by Principal St. Anne's College, who has been a constant support and have given us a lot of encouragement, especially Poppy ma'am, who has not let us feel any to end for problem and always help us in carrying out such important events. And my dear colleagues, this virtual conference was a really good experience. It was well planned, systematically organized and coordinated. We have learned novel skills as well as problems and solutions of women migrant, etc. The whole program was well scheduled, and the schedule was given to each participant before. While the overall course was a learning experience, it goes without saying that the course certainly led to value addition for each and all. A brainstorming sessions among the participants should be included. However, the way we are guided and taught critical evaluation of this major problem, and even the resource persons, is highly appreciative and informative for us. Once again, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. It's been very fascinating and very engaging of 2 days. We come to the end of this 2 days conference, and we had around 35 speakers. Some of them were not present. 2-3 were not present actually. Yeah, we had around 32 speakers of the 2 days program, including chairperson and resource person. First of all, I would like to thank our chief guest of one inauguration program, Professor Kathy Machui, for sparing her precious time Heartfelt thanks to our chair, Bibhuti Patel from TIS, for chairing the session very smoothly. And hearty thanks to Professor Rekha Pandey for being very encouraging and very supporting all the time. I thank Professor Mani Meklai ma'am for sharing the session and for supporting us all the time. And hearty thanks to Dr. Dora for accepting our invitation and giving us her precious time. And heartful thanks to Dr. Rukmini Rao, even though you are so busy today, but even you have given us time, precious time, your precious time. Really very thankful to you, ma'am. Before we go to the more important, I would like to introduce our team member of CWS who was behind me helping us out, Miss Aparna, the technical director. Can you please on your video? Aparna ma'am. Yeah, Miss Indira ma'am, Miss Debiani, HOD of French department, Miss Indira, faculty from BBM, Miss Uruja, Department of Nutrition, Miss Sarita, English department, who has exceptional in helping me out. I am very thankful to them. I think I must say that I have very impressed and touched by the ability of the paper presenter. I think you deserve a huge applause. And then I would like to thank my student committee member, Miss Harshita, Miss Rilaya, Miss Shannon for your dedication. And special thanks to our beloved sister principal and Dr. P. Amruta for their supports and encouragement. And finally, before I end, I must say the audience has been exceptional. Thank you very much for your kind cooperation and supports. Thank you, everyone. Before we end this meeting, let us stand for the national anthem.
नायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 जय